Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Just Two Dads with my co-host and business partner, Mr. Sean Francis. I am Brian Altunian, and today's guest, we love, first of all, we're going to talk about his title, Executive Neuroscience Specialist, advocate, author. This is going to be a great conversation. Energy is not going to be short in this conversation. So really on another episode of Just Two Dads. Hey everyone, I am Brian Altunian along with Sean Francis, and we're at episode number 192 in our fourth season of Just Two Dads. Excited to be here. We started this about 4 years ago with the intent of shining the spotlight on amazing people who are involved, who serve, and are a part of our special needs community. And today is no exception. Our guest is an author who's written an amazing book. We're going to talk about that and so many other things today. Before we do that, just want to, if you're catching us live on Facebook, thank you. Leave comments. We'll post them up on the screen if we can. If you go to our website at justtwodadspodcast.com, you can see all of our past episodes. Links to our YouTube channel are there as well, and all of our past episodes. And if you're catching us on podcast outlets or WSTX AM radio down in the Virgin Islands, thank you for making us part of your listening today. We love to get feedback. We'd love to hear from folks. You can always email us at wearejusttwodads@gmail.com. And if you have suggestions of people that we should be talking to. We're getting close to the end of the year. The holiday season is coming up on us, and we have one more episode next week to finish out this year, and then a whole bunch of new things going on next year, which we're really, really excited about. So thank you, Sean, for putting that up there. Billy Footwear, our partner, sponsor, friends, they do adaptive footwear for people of all sizes, ages, abilities. Amazing company, and the story of the founder, Billy Price, is so fascinating and so amazing, and we're honored to be in business with him and be able to promote what he's doing. By the way, they're having a massive end of the year holiday sale. If you click on the link on our show notes, it's on the screen at the moment, but you click on it, you'll be able to get an additional 15% off using our code. So thank you, folks at Billy Footwear. So without further ado, there are many other people to thank, but we're going to get into it. So we're starting a minute late or so. Gonna throw it over to Sean, my partner in Thrive, as we like to say. How you feeling, Sean? I feel like you're solid, dude. You're foundational. You appear foundational today. How are you feeling?
That, we want to make sure that we add value to people. If I appear foundational, then that means I've succeeded in my attempt to add value, because, the personal development analogy of the duck from the waist up above the water, that's just regal, and underneath from the waist down, everything is like,
yeah,
everything leading up to us hitting broadcast record. It just me getting into this chair was so. It's nice to know that I'm growing. And speaking of the balance between, and if you're watching, you'll see the video of my hands doing the duck feet and the wiggle pose, striking a balance between those two. Our guest today is somebody who I think personifies that in a tremendous way. He is a warrior, an advocate, just and a new friend to us, and just an amazing guy,
and an author. And an author with a fantastic book that we're going to talk about. But we're going to talk about, as we often do, who he is, his origin and everything, and what led him to the book himself. Welcome to Just Two Dads, Harry Pizarros.
Thank you, Brian. Thank you, Sean. It's a true honor to be here, and I'm really excited to get started.
Yes,
awesome.
As are we. And so
yes,
we always say the first qualifications for being a hero is thinking that you're not one, because you're so busy just doing what you do. So you obviously passed the test there. So why don't we start with, all heroes have superpowers, and superpowers come from our origins. Why don't we go ahead and start with that? You're geographically from the Pittsburgh area in Pennsylvania, but let's start with where you're from spiritually, emotionally, how you were raised, and all those things, because that plays a role in what takes place on the day of diagnosis.
Sure, and I will tell you, the first podcast asked me about my origin story. So I grew up in Weirton, West Virginia, which is a steel town. And what makes Weirton interesting is you can drive from Steubenville, Ohio to Weirton, West Virginia to Pittsburgh within a 15-minute time span, or I should say from Ohio to West Virginia. So if you think of the Upper Peninsula of West Virginia, we're at the very top. So in all fairness, and I love the state of West Virginia, we tend to think of ourselves as Pittsburghers. As you could tell, I don't have maybe a West Virginian accent or anything like that. At one point, Weirton Steel employed 10,000 employees. It was the number one employer in the state of West Virginia. It has since diminished, unfortunately. But it was a great, great place to grow up. And a little bit about myself. I mean, my father was George, who passed away a year ago, was the vice president of operations for Weirton Steel. He was electrical engineer from West Virginia University. He was also the president of the West Virginia State Steel Commission. So my father was a true steel man. There's no way to put it. I mean, he was an amazing influence on me. My mother was a teacher for nearly 40 years. She's in Weirton, West Virginia's Hall of Fame for service. And she was a music teacher. So the little theater in the middle school in Weirton is named after my mother. And again, what I can't emphasize is my mother was someone that has taught my brother and I everything about service. My brother Michael. We could do 10 podcasts on my brother. He's 6 years older than me. He's a both international and national philanthropist. The Center for Financial Markets and Policy at Georgetown is named after him. The country of Greece just named a commemorative stamp after him. He was honored with Dean Spanos, the owner of the Chargers, as well, right, in Athens. And he's also, his passion project was the St. Nicholas National Shrine in New York, which is now part of the whole 9/11 experience. It's the most visited church in the nation. So he has a legacy that I could go on for 4 hours, but he's one of the most prominent Greek-American businessmen in the nation and lives to serve others. Has never forgot his roots, and he lives to serve others. So, I've been very fortunate. I grew up in a very close family. We preach Hellenism, which is family, faith. Well, I should start in the order: faith, family, education, and not just education, traditional education. We stack degrees. We have a lot of them in the family, but being an autodidact. My grandfather, Mike the Barber Paceris, he was an orphan, had a third grade education, but he was a genius in terms of intellectual wattage, off the charts. He would look at me and go, "Hetty, my boy," in the Greek accent. He goes, "You're smart as your library. How many books you have read?" And my grandfather's library was immense. When he passed away, he was the oldest running barber in Weirton's history. We had physicians, attorneys, lawyers. I mean, you could steel workers all lined up, and he could talk to all of them. So, I was blessed to grow up in a family that preached family, faith, education, but most importantly, and I'll get to this, serving others. Service to others. And my publisher told me I need to patent this. My trademark saying is, if you're breathing air, you should be serving others. In Greek, and I talk about it in my book, it's the concept of philotimo, doing good for the sake of doing good. So, my background, that's my background. I'm Greek Orthodox. My parents were really stressed that to my brother and I. I've made, I believe, a big impact in my area, in Pittsburgh and in Weirton. My brother has literally made an impact across the globe. And I think the recent stamp in Greece, I mean, the country wanted to recognize him for his efforts. Right. So, that it's in my DNA. And the older I get, the more I want to do to help other people.
Yeah. It's interesting. Your grandfather seems to typify, for those that are in the video that are looking at us, watching the show after the fact or on YouTube, that picture frame behind me, it just looks like black and white from, the late 1800s. It's only slightly removed from that. I have no memory of my grandfather because I was very young when he died. But he didn't have much formal education. Not only did he not graduate high school. I don't think he made it to high school, but was beyond successful. He and my grandmother were, people that served. And it seems like your grandfather was much the same and embodied the thought that, you shouldn't let education get in the way of your learning. Because they are, in fact, two different things. So, and it's funny, that which is passed on to us, we really, it begins to really bind to our bones and our soul the older we get, and so I really appreciate that. And so obviously those things that you're taught from your family and passed on has everything to do with what takes place when you deal with the diagnosis of a child and everything. So let's continue with that chronologically. That's amazing.
Sure. So one thing that was left out in the introduction, it's funny, and then I'll explain why I'm mentioning this. So I'm one of the University of Pittsburgh's top social media influencers for sports. I developed the first two sites covering Pitt recruiting. Larry Fitzgerald yesterday was honored and put into the College Hall of Fame. I have his high school highlight video, VHS, that's how old I am, up here in my desk. And, I was joking. So when my wife was pregnant, and I should state, my wife's amazing. She was my junior high sweetheart. So we've been together for quite some time. And I looked at Michelle and I said, that's it. We got the next Pitt linebacker. I'm excited. I went to the University of Pittsburgh and I'm a proud Panther. I'll tell you that. I bleed it. And I said, that's it. We got, he's going to be a buckethead. We're going to put him in. He's going to nail people. And, when he was born, my book addresses a lot about, in the beginning in particular, the obstinate, belligerent father that won't recognize the diagnosis. So I'll say this: when my son was born, what you know. I never had another child, and my wife started noticing definitive differences. And my thought, and I state this in my book, I'm the type of guy that could have fun at an insurance seminar. You put me in a monastery and I'm partying with the monks. We're doing ouzo shots, and I just never imagined that I would have a son that might have something that would debilitate him socially, things like that. So my thought was, well, hey, he's introverted. My wife and I are yin and yang. She's more of an introvert. I'm a lunatic type A. So then what happened, we had two progressive things occur. My son had attended a birthday party for his cousins, and they were giving things out like you would give to a kid, like pencils, and they were giving out little trinkets, little cars, where the other kids were playing with them. My son just sat there not talking to anyone and just spinning the wheels and just staring and staring. And my wife came home and said, "Did you not see that? He was the outlier. Something's going on."
How old was he when this happened?
I'm going to say 2.5, 3, like in that range.
Yep.
So the nail, and if I could add, where I tell you and I know every mom listening to this will relate to this. My wife would go to the pediatrician and they were trying to paint her out to be a crazy. Well, listen, he's a kid, he's a boy, you don't know what's going on. So my wife intuitively knew something was going on. The pediatrician is pushing back, and it's a little better. Well, it's much better now, but back then she had that pressure. And then you have this guy here who's being belligerent. In fact, I'll be honest with you, I harbored some anger at the time. Why would you want to label my child? Because she had brought up autism a few times. Well, the following week, his class had a birthday party, and I couldn't go, but my wife went. And all of the children were hovering around the birthday cake, singing. My son was fixated on a fan in a corner, and he was bongo drumming, which I know now is a stim. So, and what happened, my wife started choking up because she couldn't get him over with the other kids. And that's when the teacher grabbed my wife and said, "I love you and I love Harry. But I've been meaning to talk to you. I think he might be on the autism spectrum." So when my wife returned home, she was broken. I mean, just broken. There's no other way to put that. And it really sunk into me that, hey, you know what? You got to put your ego aside. Maybe I made a mistake here. Maybe she really was onto something. And ironically, right then, Oprah Winfrey had done her first large special on autism. And Michelle had me watch it. And I went, whoa, you start seeing the dots coming.
It starts adding up. Yeah.
We lucked out. We had a family, if you can believe this, we had a family member at the Cleveland Clinic that was an administrator for the in the autism department. Wow. So instead of 6 months, we waited 2 weeks to get him to go and try to get diagnosed.
What year was it?
Boy, I'm going back. So he was 3. That would be 2012. I'm guessing. I'm trying to throw around the time frame. But what I will tell you was mentally, and this is what I try to address in the book, and some fathers do it quicker than others. We went to Cleveland. I was myself, my wife, Gus, my son Gus, and my father. And he was officially diagnosed. And on the way back, it's a 2-hour drive, I went into remorse at first. I realized how big an apology I owed my wife, how, quite frankly, what an ass I was with all this going on to be blind to it. And then hour 2, and I got to tell you, I miss him. My dad sat there in my ear and went, Harold, we're going to be good. We got this. All about mindset, right? And that's what my book's about. Harold, we got this. That hour 2, I am a boxer. I'm a martial artist. I got into a hyper-adrenalized state. I could feel it. And I said, you know what? I'm fighting for my kid. It was a paradigm shift in thinking. I went from full acceptance, but I can't explain. I was so eager to help him. I had goosebumps. So when we got home, typical Greek grandparents are shoving food in my son's mouth. And I said, I'm going right now to Barnes & Noble. And they said, you're what? Because we just got done with a 2-hour drive. I said, I'm going right now. And I bought the first Temple Grandin and several books on the subject. If I were to flip this around right now and show you, I probably have upwards of 50 books now, let alone whatever I have on Audible on my phone. And I wanted to immerse myself, but I realized that our son would not progress until I accepted it. I unified with my wife and we moved forward. And I talk about acceptance in my book. And I use the analogy, my wife and I are both fairly athletic. We love to kayak. And we do individualized kayaking. Our second home is Bethany Beach, Delaware, that area. And we typically go up there. And a couple summers ago, we decided to try a tandem kayak. And we first got on, and talk about obscenities getting thrown out. It was a nightmare. I'm going one way, she's going the other. It's going back and forth. We're yelling at each other. And we weren't in unison. By the end of it, and we were way behind the tour, we start really getting it down, and we were rowing in unison. When we were rowing in unison, we're both pretty strong. That thing was forward.
You're flying. Yeah.
That's the analogy I use.
Yeah.
If you and your wife are rowing the boat in the same direction, regardless of where your child's at on the spectrum, you can help them. So what I try to do, in particular in the beginning of my book, and there's a reason my book is under 150 pages, I wanted to break through to that male psyche. If you hand them War and Peace or The Hobbit, they're grabbing the book and chucking it right out the window. I've seen this. I've dealt with too many of them at fundraisers and things like that. I wanted an easy read that would get through to that father and get them to understand, A, acceptance means improvement, not a scarlet letter, and B, get together with your wife and focus on that child's improvement. You got to be rowing in unison.
Yeah.
Let me ask you something. When you were talking and you said yin and yang, it's funny. We've talked to people before that have been on the show who, as a result of being a caregiver, I don't want to label him that as who I shouldn't say as a result, but who are caregivers and divorced. And we acknowledge that regardless of diagnosis, that when you have a child with special needs, in our community, the divorce rate is high. When you mention that you and your wife are yin and yang, I think of my wife and I right away. By no means, and I think you would agree with this, you're not sitting here trying to say, I'm an expert, so this is what you have to do to make this work. But I'm curious as to what your thought is about the yin and yang, because there's things that my wife and I are just completely in alignment with. The majority of the things that matter. And we've been tested over the years, just like any couple. But the things where we are opposites, are our strength and weaknesses. And I think that there's a certain amount of that that's needed for a marriage to survive when you have two caregivers. What's your thought on that?
Exactly. So first, when I said, I'm almost a 4th degree black belt in Tung Sudo. We talk about Umyang. If you look at this, the Korean symbol, it's the duality of forces in life.
Right.
Yeah. And that's a good way to put it. So my wife is remarkably sweet and more introverted. She will tell you that. She doesn't want to public speak. I could get up in front of 1 million people and speak. So we're different that way. Where we unified, and I'll tell you where there was some divergency. Where we unified was we agreed everything possible we're going to do to help our child. In fact, if I could add this very quickly, my son is in college and he's 21. We're going next week to Florida. My son and I are flying down there for a new innovative treatment for autism. So we have not, I want to emphasize, vigilance is what my wife and I had. We realized we had to unify on that, care about our son. Now, there were some differences. If you can tell by now, I'm pretty high energy and kind of crazy. I think we get picked up on that probably.
Yeah.
So I said, what I want, like, I know she was, and I get this, like she was a mother. So she wanted to really kind of, I don't want to say baby them or shelter them a little bit. She was worried about what the outside world would do to our child. My opinion when I was young was, you know what? I'm getting both of my boys and they're going out with me no matter where we go. And my thought was all interactions were good interactions. So we would at times butt heads on things like that, but never severely, if you follow me. But so to your point, Sean, like, there was, for the most part, we had a unification of thought on where we wanted to go with our son. My methodology at times was a little bit different. But at the end of the day, what really kept us together was just wanting ultimately the best for our child. And in my book, I talk about my 2% rule, some other things like that, which are techniques, I believe, the mindset you have to have every day to help that child.
Yeah, for sure.
Wow.
I mean, listen, I'm one of those statistics, right? Divorced after my child's diagnosis. And my ex-wife and I, our focus was always on what was best for the kids and what my daughter needed. And once you take your personal ego out of it, and focus on your child, it's amazing how unified you can get because you don't have that, that conflict. You can sort of put that aside. So that's amazing.
And I discussed the divorce rates in my book. They are fairly high. In a weird way, I'll say this, because we are in many ways different, my wife and I. It actually might have strengthened our relationship in a weird way because we were so unified. And you feel those initial years, and I know anyone listening to this as a special needs child, you feel sheltered. You feel like I'm in a neighborhood with a bunch of jocks, and they're all my sons. I'm the neighborhood dad. They're all my sons. I have several that are going to be professional soccer players. Honestly, my younger son's a college football player. But Gus didn't play sports. He didn't have the coordination at the time or anything. So you do feel like you're on an island, and it kind of brought us together in a sense in those initial years that were very tough.
Yeah. Well, it does one of two things, because I was thinking, we talk about the statistics and, how high the rate of divorce is, but we also don't talk about the situations that after divorce that are like Brian's, where he talks about being able to co-parent successfully versus those that are not only divorced as a result, but really ripped apart, where there's even a challenge co-parenting.
Right.
And so usually when the diagnosis comes about, I always feel like it's going to either strengthen you or, bring you apart. Either way, there's fractures that are going to take place, and they're either going to strengthen you or be the demise of the relationship, because, those challenges tend to strengthen you. You can't, at least I don't think you can get muscles by lifting up, cotton or feathers. You got to pick up something heavy.
Well, and it's funny, this leads me to the origins of the book. And because I have had so many extensive conversations with fathers. So in 2014, Kelly Kane, who is the founder here in Pittsburgh, I'm on the board of directors of the Autism Caring Center, had the Autism Notebook in Pittsburgh, a great publication. They had a giant conference here in Greentree. And long story short, she said, hey, can you go speak? So I had about 20 minutes to speak. I was the first father to ever speak at that conference. And while I was doing it, I had a multitude of mothers line up. And I'm talking anywhere from 10 to 12. And they were emotional. So my first thought was, Viserys, did you say something offensive? Like, I'm sitting there in my mind trying to think, what? And then I realized, I looked down and I could see the emotion. And when I was done, they came up to me and they physically grabbed me and said, "We need you." Either our husband or boyfriend, whomever, whatever the situation was, they're not on board. And I am not shy. I collected names, I collected cell phones, and it led to a dinner, multiple cups of coffee. 2 of, I think, the 12 like hung up on me. And but I was able to go and speak. And what I found was a mixed bag. You had a percentage of fathers who could not get past their machismo. Their thought was, how can I produce an offspring that has an issue? Can't be me, And with those guys, I'm not shy. If they didn't like me, they didn't like me. We had to have a blunt conversation. Then I had others that were men want to fix things. I'm sure you can relate to this.
Yep, we do.
If your child falls on a bike, you slap on a Band-Aid and you're done. If your child has autism or something else that you just can't fix, their stoicism was perceived as being a negative, that they weren't involved. They were just basically frozen trying to figure out how to fix this.
Right.
And what I was able to do was segue and go, you need to speak to your wife. Or I would call the wife and go, no, he's on board. He's just lost at the moment and he needs a little bit of space. So, and after that, I've become a louder voice here in the Berg, and I've been able to speak at fundraisers, and I've been on air, I've been on the radio, podcast, and I've dealt with a multitude of fathers, and it's given me, so after that experience, I looked at my wife after 2014 at the conference. I said, I think there's a book here. And I said, I need something that'll connect with a dad. But I waited, and I'm glad I did, because life gives you experience. And about 2 years ago, I was a keynote speaker for the Autism Caring Center's Mother's Day conference that had about 400 plus moms. The speaker after me was the big one, was Kate Swenson, who's written a very well-known book. It's in Barnes & Noble. And
Kate's been on our show. Yeah.
She's fantastic.
Yeah, we love Kate. Yeah.
When I finished, I had the exact same, I had a multitude of mothers coming up to me, asking me how they should talk to their husbands. And I looked at my wife and I go, I'm writing. I said, my speech, I think, is my outline of a simple book, and I need to do it. And right then I got approached by Corey Walmsley, that owns Aurora Coriolis Publishing. And she said, you got to write a book. So it was like the universe speaking to me. And my goal with this book, again, it's a simple read, was my act of philotimo. I want to give back to the community, but in doing so, I wanted a little bit of a tool that can be used either for the belligerent father or one unaccepting, to just the parents in general. And it's programmed into me. I am all about hope and positivity. The themes in my book are hope, positivity, grit, and resilience, because I think you need all four to raise your child on the spectrum. So this isn't a how-to book. There's too many of those and they're this thick. I don't have the PhD to write it. I wanted something simple that would work synergistically with those books, that would tap in and be a motivator for a lot of families. And I've been blessed. I've heard from families around the world now that have read the book, and it's just so humbling, and it's an honor to know I've helped them.
And for those who are listening but not seeing, the book is called From Struggle to Strength. You can get it on Amazon. And is it on Audible as well, Harry?
Well, actually, it's From Struggle to Strength: A Father's Journey with Autism and the Power of Hope and Positivity. Look for the gold boxing gloves in the front, and there's a reason for that. It was maddening. In the last month, I finished my Audible, and I'm in the process of trying to upload, which has been like splitting the atom. It's a long story, but I'm on my third run trying to get the MP3 files up to their level that they want. I went to a professional studio, so it should be up and running within a week, and I should have the Audible available. And the reason people have asked me, well, why the heck do you have boxing gloves? And again, I'm a martial artist. I'm a boxer. I went in every single day acting like I was in a boxing ring or the dojo. I went in because when I say that, I went in every day asking, how can I push my son 2% better? I talk about the 2% rule. And if you're in the ring and you have your guard up, you're protected, you're ready to go. And if you drop your gloves, you're going to get hit or knocked out. In particular with karate, you're definitely going to get knocked out. So what I wanted to go in every day with a fighter's mentality, I'm fighting for my son. I have a warrior spirit. And if I decide to take a day off, that's me dropping my guard and getting my ass knocked out. And I didn't plan on getting knocked out. So I would go in, and that's what I talk about my 2% rule. I would wake up every day and go, how can I get my son 2% better? And I would look for anything. If it was something, whether it's social skills, adding a new food with texture, activities of daily living, whatever it might be, a sensory issue, and trying to help him, because those little improvements that you make every day lead to much, much larger gains down the line. But that's why I've been asked that constantly. I've had someone DM me last night and say, why the gloves? That's why.
I think it would be so odd for it to not be there, because life is a ring anyway. My dad and I talk about this all the time. And, fortunately, unfortunately, but factually, your biggest opponent is your biggest cheerleader, which is you anyway. And that has nothing to do with special needs, caregiving, or a diagnosis. There's always a fight for the life we want versus the one that we have. And when you add the caregiving component, then, it's twice as much a fight. And I thank you for the book, because it's so needed. My son plays on a baseball team, a special needs baseball team. It was a great experience. And, over the summer and spring, we just, go out and cheer, and it's good and everything. And he was anxious to do basketball. I didn't even stop to think, as much as I played basketball throughout my life, that's a totally different endeavor. So as we had our second practice last night, I'm like, wait a minute, they need to strike a balance between accommodating them and not having them carry the ball and run with it, and making sure they can dribble and stuff. And there's certain kids that have really good form, and I'm working through the steps and the processes to show my son how to do that. And I, for the first time in a while, caught myself going, he doesn't do that. I know he could do that. And the little bit of comparison that takes place, so all of those things are, or the tools to battle all those things are in your book, and we can never have too many of those.
And I will tell you, the response has been so great with this. We are trying to build this into a bit of a national brand. I'm working with the team out of New York right now. I just want to be there. I'm looking at two amazing warriors, fathers that are out there. I just want to make myself a little bit louder on a national scale. And you're going to see a lot more content on Instagram and TikTok, which that is a whole new new space for me. I got to tell you. And we're talking a possible podcast, next year. And it won't just be autism. I am really an obscenely clean eater. I went to the Institute of Integrative Nutrition as well. I love to talk about nutrition and what it does for their mind, their body. ADHD, Tourette's, all falls under this. So I'd like to be as informational as possible, but I just want to give back, I will tell you, it's been amazing. The book, I'm a first-time author, waking up on a daily basis and getting an email. I've heard from like New Zealand, I've heard from, Finland, and it's just been amazing. But what I really appreciate are the fathers that get a hold of me that go, the one dad, I had tears in my eyes. He said, I woke up, I read your book, I woke up, and I did a complete he goes, I was nasty, I was fighting my family. I woke up and I said, what can I do first to help? And their jaws dropped. And he said that paradigm shift into positivity blew his entire family away. But he said, I read your book and I realized enough. That facade of negativity, anger. Because what I state in my book, I think of my son. You have the therapists who would come in the morning, their supervisors, and think of my wife, midday, and then you had him coming in the afternoon. Then there might be some additional therapy at night after that. They have a long day. They don't need your negativity. Your wife doesn't need your negativity. So I talk about the Ted Lasso effect and what that show did to parenting, coaching. Wake up every day and you be the cheerleader. You bring optimism, you bring positivity, and your family will feed off it. Your children have enough difficulties as it is. I empathize with every parent, every child out there. But if you're the one inflicting them or bringing in all that negativity, helps nothing. So hearing from that, but I got to tell you, I got so choked up. That was like 2-3 days ago. And I'm getting a lot of those coming through right now. And it's just been amazing to see it.
Yeah, amazing. And Harry, do you also have a men's group? You're speaking to dads, on a larger scale, or has it all been through the book and
It's
those
been through the
connections?
book. I probably have done 20 major podcasts by now. More so in the autism space, some not.
Sure.
I'm not technically involved. Locally we have one fathers group. On a national scale, no. Right now, I know. In fact, I'd look forward to joining you. I know you have one. I know there are others out there. I've been asked. I believe it's in the Philadelphia area. They're trying to start a Father's Day conference, and I'd like to speak at that as well. So I'm open to anything at this point. And I want to make sure to specify the book mentally will help parents, both mothers and fathers. But I had that dad in mind. I've talked to too many of them that weren't on board. And in fact, people don't believe me. I've had a few moms get a hold of me, mothers, and go, boy, I wish they could talk to you. And I'm like, bring them on. I don't care where they're at. Give me their cell phone. Let me talk to them. And I'm going to help put them on the right track.
Love
so
that.
the authors out there, I mentioned in my book, I tell them where to find. I'm not hiding. You know what I mean?
Well, at least 50% of the men that have signed up for free registration for our men's group, the Den, at least 50% of them either did so because of their wife, or their wife actually registered them. Yeah.
Oh, that's funny. Yeah. That's great.
And so that tells us a lot. Matter of fact, we're so deep in the denial that there's a large percentage, and I'd love to see what the numbers are on this, but there's a large percentage of us that can't even acknowledge the denial because you literally don't know. You're so busy doing what you do. And I think as men, that's why we need to continue to raise our consciousness. Going back to your talking about the event in Philadelphia, Jamel says hi, by the way.
Oh, I messaged him right before this. He's awesome. He's awesome.
Yeah.
He's the first I knew that had one like that, to his credit. And I would love to go and to speak and to just meet other fathers. But what I really, really love, and you guys are part of that club now, is, and I know you've had Rod Gorski on the Autism Dad, and guys that are making, and Mark Oram that does the Daily Autism podcast. I'm looking at warrior dads. I've talked about warrior moms for so long, and I love and respect all of them. But sure. I'm starting to get like Braveheart. I'm starting to put my army together. You know what I mean? And it's really thrilling to me. And I will tell you this, and I tell my boys this, and I'll tell anybody this. In the game of life, you either sit on the bench or you play in the game. And the people that play in the game, the difference makers, are the MVPs. I'm staring at two up here on my screen up this way with you two.
Sweet.
And Jamil falls into that, and some others. I tell my boys every day, make an impact. I don't care who it is, who you're reaching out to. Make an impact and do something positive. I preach to them constantly. So, my son, Max, youngest, is a running back for Allegheny College up in Meadville, Pennsylvania. He's a freshman. Right. But I said, even there, as a member of the football team, who can you go in terms of outreach in that community and help? There's you and your teammates can do something. So I'm always pushing that. So what I love is I'm meeting all of these warrior dads, and I hope to be a louder voice nationally, especially heading into next year.
Yeah, it's amazing. I mean, and we have the same experience. We meet dads who are like, I was in denial, I was angry, I was looking to blame somebody, I was looking to, how to fix it. I think the diagnosis was wrong. I need second, third, fourth, fifth opinions, and then realizing that they actually had to turn the view inward to understand really how to navigate and be a successful warrior. And so we echo your.
And if there's a father listening to this, this is like a month ago, I did a speech down in Fairmont, West Virginia, to an awesome mothers group, but they came from all over the state. And they were asking me, well, some of us don't have groups and whatever. And I said, okay, who lives near each other? And you had some raise their hands, and I said, there's your group. Or, and I tell fathers all the time, they go, well, I've talked to fathers everywhere and go, I don't have an outlet to talk to. 1 in 36 at the moment are being diagnosed. So there are a multitude of dads or a multitude of moms around you. Find them, start a group. That when I talk about action, don't talk, do. and in doing so, that's the whole concept of philotimo. You're giving back, you're making those connections and going from there, so I think it's important.
It's funny, the inception of this podcast was a result of Sean and I having conversations on a daily basis of our experience as dads. And literally we're like, we should do this. And, this conversation,
just share
somebody would benefit from this conversation. Why don't we do a podcast and, and see if we can, help other people feel like they're not alone. And I think, again, that's the ultimate, folks who have a diagnosis in their family feel like they're, to your point, they're on an island, they're out there alone. Nobody has their same experience until they meet somebody with the same experience. And then you're right. Community is so needed here. And there's more of us. Honestly, I believe there's more of us that are impacted by the special needs issues than those that are not, but
definitely
silent majority.
Definitely. And we need to be reminded too, anybody that decides to create a platform, leverage a platform, or do anything to kind of bring people together, pay attention to your numbers. You might want to reach as many people as possible. And if the people that you appear to be reaching is not as great as you might hope, you'll probably kind of get a little discouraged, and you can't allow that to happen. We had a pre-show conversation with a gentleman that's going to be on the show, and he was saying that what he gets from men most of the time is like they feel unseen, they feel invisible, and he gave appreciation for what we're doing, just as you have. And you're so busy doing what you do, you forget, wait a minute, there's one person. It's like the starfish story that Brian likes to talk about all the time, which is, the kid on the beach that stole the starfish in.
Yep.
Yeah, exactly.
I used to actually open speeches with that, so I'm very familiar with it.
Made a difference for that one. That's all you need is one. You make
all
a
you need is one.
For one.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
And I will tell you, if I could add to the vigilance piece, like literally looking under every stone possible. And what's beautiful when we talk about these conversations, my book is open the world, and I'm learning new modalities, things like that. So, I talk about sight and vision, and I think you have to have both in my book. Sight being the now, the 2%. What are we doing? The grind every day. Vision being, where's that kid going to be 5 years, 10 years? And it changed for us after. The only thing I promote in my book that I believe in is neuroplasticity. If it wasn't for Dr. Malello's work in brain balance, my son may not be in college. It changed our vision because he went from a kid that might be working or learning a trade to a kid that's now in college. But even now, because of my book, it exposed me to a physician that's doing something unique down in Florida. Like I said, we're going to be on a plane next week, and I'm hoping that it improves him enough to change that vision as well.
Wow.
So just, I would stress to anyone, always have hope, always look for another modality, always be there to look to make your child a little bit better, and just have that faith that it's going to be okay.
Let me ask you, so as a father to child son who turned 18 in May, graduated high school, went through conservatorship, and is now in an adult school program, which we're still trying to figure out how it really fits him. We've had some challenges there. Do you have in the book, or is that a discussion offline about how you were able to bring to fruition any vision? First of all, have a vision of him going to college, and then bring it to fruition. Because for us, college and Elijah at this point, it's still something that we would want more than him. What we want more is just like, what is it that makes him a productive member of society and increases his independence? We don't necessarily know what that's going to be, but at the same time, we know that college isn't going to happen unless we figure out what you might be able to tweak and at least have an option, an opportunity. So is there something you can offer with regard to opening up that path for someone whose child will shot?
No, it's a great question. So I can only relay what we did.
Right.
In this area, we are known as trailblazers. And when I say that, I've had some hits and I've had some misses. So when I say misses, I'll give you real quick and I talk about it. And I don't want to get sued, so I'm not going to mention who it is. But
yeah, we can't guarantee anything either. Yeah,
there was a best-selling book with a very controversial title that came out on autism. But I read it twice over COVID. I thought this might be a game changer. It was a physician out of the West Coast. My son and I were involved in him and realized very quickly he came across as a quack. We put out a lot of money. He put a lot of weight on my son with some psychotropics. Nothing worked out. and we moved on. But the point is, we kept trying. So when Dr. Malello's work, I was researching that. I was always looking for something new or innovative. I don't know where my son would be right now if we didn't have that. He was progressing. He wasn't doing too badly in school, but I don't know if college would have been in the picture. That was a hit. In other words, we went to Brain Balance. When he started, he was in an autistic fog, and his writing was far behind his peers, very large. He was answering questions that didn't make any sense. 12 weeks later, they brought over the same page. I go, well, who is this? They go, it's your kid. I go, you got to be kidding me. And we were looking, he answered everything specifically. It was comparable to his peers, very clear, his writing. He was sort of out of what I would call the autistic fog, where they're kind of in their own world and while other people are around, they're talking.
Yeah.
And we found a hit. So I can't give you exact XYZ what to do. The point being, we never gave up, and we found a modality that worked. So after we hit on that first semester, he went another 2 semesters. I talk about it in my book. We have a location much closer now. My wife had to go past the University of Pittsburgh into the heart of Pittsburgh to go to the center. She drove over 8,000 miles in 3 semesters. And she's a school nurse. She would come home and just collapse around 9 o'clock at night. But I talk about unrelenting love. I compare her to Uma Thurman's character in Kill Bill, and that desire, so the point being, we kept trying modalities, and we struck on one that really worked. So again, that vision piece I talk about in my book changed significantly. Now it's like, you know what, the kid's getting a 3.8. His teachers have noticed the difference. He's interacting better with his peers. He had a group of friends here from the neighborhood. Now, hey, you know what? That vision has changed to potentially getting a degree. And I'm big on vision boards. So the way it looks right now is first degree, Ram truck. That's very important to him. Next degree, he's thinking about being like a PT assistant, physical therapy assistant, coming home, getting that secondary degree, then he'll be on his own with the job. And it's funny, I did mention to him dating this summer, and he has those rigidities, and he goes, Dad, degree, truck, degree, then wife. And I go, okay, that works.
Good for him.
That's so much of us, because we're always like, we've had conversations. I remember having a conversation with, we had a conversation with Holly Robinson P. I think it might have been off air. I'm not sure. We're talking about the same thing. Okay, he's accomplished A, B, and C. And does anybody know, does anybody have a nice girl? Like, because we always wonder those things. I don't know what he's going to experience in those regards. Like when you just literally said that he wants the truck. Not that you wanted that for him. The fact that he's able to make that distinction and identify it, that's everything. Because there's certain things with us where Elijah's like just very indifferent and things you have to present to him. When he presents something to you on his own that he wants, the smallest thing, it's just, that is everything. You know what I mean? Right. So it's everything. It's everything. Wow.
I am so immensely proud of him, and and we've had to have these conversations. I tell him, you're not different than anyone. My brain is a PC, yours is an Apple. They're just wired a little bit differently.
Exactly right.
Because he said to me, hey Dad, he's coming off a great semester at Kent. He'll be home in a week. He said, why are we going down to Florida? And I said, buddy, because I love you and I want to make you even better. And he goes, got it, Dad. And let me say this, and I should say this. None of this would happen. I wouldn't be meeting you. The book wouldn't be selling well. I went to him and I said, listen to me. You have been through a lot, and you are what good looks like, and you can motivate and help so many people, but I'm not going to write unless you want me to. And I'm not going to swear on your show, but it sounds cute, but it wasn't. He looked very introspectively. You could see that brain working. He goes, you know what, Dad? I've been through a lot of poop, but he didn't say that. He goes, I've been through a lot. And he said, you know what? If it could help others, I'm all for it. Because this is a kid that you have to understand. He has autism. He can't hear out his right ear. He has primary ciliary dyskinesia for his lungs, which is an issue. He has Tourette's. So this kid has been in and out of so many offices, neurologist offices, therapy. But it's hardened him. He's a tough kid. My youngest son is an animal. He's a beast. He could, deadlift 400 pounds. He's got the neck, the whole deal. I'm a black belt. I can still kick his ass. I'm a black belt, but I remind him that. but Max is a beast. But Gus is, and I love that Max realizes this. His brother is tough in a different way, and it meant so much to me that he says, "You know what, Dad? I let's do it." And I could see the sense of pride that he has right now, knowing that his story has resonated and it's helping people. And I credit everything I've done to my son. It's amazing.
Yeah,
incredible.
Speaking of amazing,
yeah,
there's we're at the time. I already know what Brian's getting ready to say.
Yeah,
and we got to get it in because it's interesting. With each show, we always say, "Oh my gosh, the time goes by so fast. This was the best show ever. This is the best guest." Or the other thing we say at this point is, "I'm especially anxious to see what you're going to say, your answer to this question, the question that we ask at this point in time." And Harry, because of the way you're wired, and I see so much similarities, I'm really just chomping at the bit to see what your answer is to the question, which is as follows: our ability to make the world a better place in some way, great or small, is based on our ability or willingness to change ourselves. So, with that said, give us just one. Knowing you probably got 5, but give us just one example of a thought or a belief that you once held strongly believed, but no longer believe to be true.
That's an awesome question. Maybe one of the best I've ever been asked. Let me say this in particular, like out of college, things like that. I wanted to be a success, especially with the rock star in front of me, which was my brother. You want to replicate that and be successful.
Yeah.
So there was a me mentality. And you talked about, you mentioned the key word, making an impact in the world. What I have found was all that was nonsensical. The older I get, it's about we. And I say we, not just my family, the collective, everyone around me. I focus on legacy. Legacy to me is everything. When I am 6 feet in the ground, what do my kids say about me? What does my wife say? Not only that, too, how good have I treated people and what have I done to help them? That's all that matters to me now. And what I've found, like this book is a great example. I wrote the book to help others, and the universe has come back to me tenfold. I'm meeting guys like you. I'm meeting guys like Jamil. I'm hearing from fathers, from mothers around the world. And what I found is focus on being like, it doesn't cost you anything in life to be kind and to help others. Nothing. Yeah. You don't need to be a rich man, but you could help so many people. And the wealth you bring that comes back to you doesn't have to be monetary, but the karma that comes back is so worth it. So when I was young, I wanted to conquer the world. I started my career as an engineer. I was boxing. I felt like a He-Man, like I was an unstoppable juggernaut, but I was very me-focused. Now I'm we-focused. And that we involves my family, that we involves the people around me. And I don't care who you are. If I have a father that hears this and calls me after this, I'm going to be on the phone with him. What I do right now, what I do to give back, my legacy is all that matters. So that's how my life has changed.
That's why we're here, and that's why we're just completely in sync. I have this thing where, I believe like that. As far as I'm concerned, I'm in search of eternity, meaning that I struggle with this belief in something greater than ourselves. They say that even men of the cloth have a struggle with belief, in their faith, and whether or not eternity exists beyond this physical realm is up for debate to an extent. I like to live my life as though there is something more. But the one thing that can't be debated is that there is a sense of eternity that we have in terms of legacy, in terms of what we do when we while we're here, and what we leave behind once we're left, the way we impact people. I saw somebody interviewing Mike Tyson. This was a young girl, by the way, just before this big, I don't even know if you want to call it a fight, that thing that he had.
It's questionable. Yeah.
Right. And Mike, based on what he's been through, she asked him a question about legacy, and he just said, legacy, what's legacy? I don't, that none of that matters. I need to stop doing the list because none of that matters. It's like, we're all going to die and nobody's going to remember me or whatever. And on one hand, that's real, but then it's cynical. But at the same time, what we do impacts each other. And everything you said earlier, one of the things that stood out is just like, hey, all you need is one. All you need is one.
Yep.
All you need is one. Wow.
Yeah.
What a great time.
Yeah. Great conversation. From Struggle to Strength is a short title. What's the longer title, Harry? From Struggle to Strength.
From Struggle to Strength, a father's journey with autism and the power of hope and positivity. Look for the yellow boxing gloves on Amazon.
Yeah, it's a great book, great read, easy read, just over 100 pages, and so valuable. Harry, thank you so much for being here. I knew that this hour was going to go by fast, and I knew it was going to be full of energy. I'm all fired up now. So as we wrap up the show, I always say empathy and love, so important. Have some empathy. You don't know what somebody else is going through, what the challenges they're facing. Don't be judgmental. If you can avoid, be empathetic. See where people are. Put yourself in somebody else's shoes. And then if you look at the world through the lenses of love, everything's better. So it's really, service is an extension of that, right? Service is a way to express love on a grander scale. So thank you for being of service, Harry, in all that you do. I'm fired up. I kind of wish you would adopt me and, give me that whole inspirational jolt every day, because I feel like that's what your kids probably get.
Now that I know both of you, I can convert you to Steeler fans very soon. Just give me time.
That's not difficult.
I got something to add to that as well. Brian, you're going to go and throw it over to me.
I'll just say, and again, I think I shared with you, my father was born in Ambridge, Pennsylvania, my mother in Lima, Ohio, or Lima, Ohio. And so
Lima.
They had the steel dust on the marble windowsills growing up. And so, we have some tie to the Pittsburgh area. So changes to Steelers fans are easy to do. Anyways, thank you everybody for catching us on Facebook or on our After the Fact. Subscribe, like, share the content. Feel free, if it's something that's poignant, please share it with somebody that's going to make a difference in somebody else's life. Thank you for listening to us down at in the U.S. Virgin Islands, and to Billy Footwear, adaptive footwear for people of all ages, sizes, and abilities. And really an inspirational story. And we love stories of folks who have taken a diagnosis or a situation and turned it into something that serves a much greater community, something as Harry has done here as well. So I'm going to throw it over to Sean. Also, last thing I'll say is our men's group was intended to provide the kind of resource that we've talked about today, a place where men can go and have a conversation. Sunday's conversation, I'm just going to say this now, and it included a conversation around flatulence, because that's what men talk about a lot, and as it relates to our children as well, and how we deal with all everything. Anything and everything that isn't that. How do you talk about things with your children in that type of setting? And everything goes. Conversation's great to have, and it's just a place that you don't feel alone. So you go to the comfortable room in the house, the den, and hang out and have a conversation with men in similar situations. So with that, I'm going to throw it over to Sean. And again, Harry, I'm going to thank you for being here today.
It's been an honor. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you again, Harry. A fantastic time here today. I always say, questions are more powerful than statements. Let's try and be more childlike and less childish. Everybody needs the same thing: to be heard, to be seen, to know that they matter, and to be loved. And as we close out, letting everyone know within the sound of my voice, if you're hearing us, we love you. But I also want to share something that I sent to Harry this week. It was Coach Mike Tomlin of the Steelers was at an event speaking, and he was speaking to a team. I don't even know who it was. It wasn't the Steelers, though. And he says, "Who here is really fast? I mean, who's the speedster? Raise your hand." Guys raise their hand in the room. He goes, "Who's got sick hops? Who has the crazy vert? Can jump out of the gym? Raise your hands." All right. Then he goes, "Who here is really strong? If you're known for your strength in a physical battle, you don't lose. Raise your hand." He goes, "Great. None of that matters." And he goes, "None of that matters. Hear me." And he says, "It's not about what you can do. I know plenty of people that can do. It's not about what you can do." He said, "It's about what you're willing to do." And that hit me upside the head. And I just got to thinking, like, am I doing everything that I can do in every given moment? Whether you believe in a greater power or not making the most out of the time that we have here is almost like a sin. You know what I mean? It's just, let's make the most out of everything, the most out of ourselves, and to each and every one that we love. to each and everyone within the sound of my voice, we love you. Thank you so much.
We love you. Thanks again, Harry. See you guys next week.